ComC is your home for buying, selling, and flipping all the hottest trading cards. Their consignment marketplace is home to over 27 million cards across all sports, genres, and eras. With a ComC account, you can purchase cards from different sellers over time and ship them home together later, or immediately reprice them for sale on the ComC marketplace. To stay updated with ComC, please follow them on social media at CheckOutMyCards, one word, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn about offers, promotions, and more at ComC, please visit blog.comc.com. You're listening to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute, a podcast where we discuss both the hobby and business sides of collecting. I'm your host, Mike Sommer, and I want to help you buy, sell, and trade your way into a collection you'll love. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute. Yesterday, I spent a lot of time putting cards into binders. That's right, I got a shipment from ComC in, and that completed a few different sets. In particular, it was some cards I needed to complete the 5th Series Orange Star Wars set, as well as some of the cards that I needed for the Series 1 and Series 3 Empire Strikes Back sets. And so now I have the entire run of Star Wars cards complete, from the very first blue series of Star Wars all the way through Empire Strikes Back, all the way through Return of the Jedi. I now have the full run of the original vintage Star Wars cards, and I'm pretty excited about that. I think I'm going to put together a video where I'm kind of going page by page through the binders that I've got them in, kind of showing each one of those runs, each card in those runs, and kind of put them out there on YouTube and TikTok. But that's a pretty neat one for me that I'm going to be holding on to for a long time. Was able to get some of those cards in different collections over time. Greg from the Rebel Base Card podcast, he hooked me up with a bunch of his extras that helped fill in some of those sets. I made a big dent on them at the non-sports card show in Chicago in the spring, and then I was able to use ComC to fill those out. I've also been listing a lot on Sportlots this week. Last week I picked up a pretty big collection of sealed junk wax era boxes and packs, as well as a couple 5 rows and some other boxes with in card savers of majority of hockey. And so there's a little bit of baseball in there. Some vintage 70s baseball was in there too. And the wax was a mixture of baseball and hockey, but the singles, a lot of the singles were hockey. And so I've been listing all of those on Sportlots, getting those out. And so I think I've listed from the mid 70s through 81 or 82 at this point. So I've been doing a lot of listing on Sportlots as well. That's what my hobby activity has been like in the last week or so. Just thought I'd share a little bit about some of the stuff that I've been able to pick up and some of the stuff that I've been able to find. We're going to continue our Super Collector series today. Today I'm going to be talking with Kent Corser, who has a Rickey Henderson Super Collection. And I really had a good time having that conversation with Kent. We had never chatted before, other than reaching out a couple times on Twitter. But this was the first actual conversation that Kent and I had, and I really enjoyed it. And so I think you are going to enjoy it too. We're going to learn more about his Rickey Henderson Super Collection after I tell you about Underdog Collectibles, the online shop run by collectors for collectors that breaks new product almost 7 days a week now. They break on Facebook, YouTube, and Loop. You can also visit them at their brick and mortar shop in Knoxville, Tennessee to see their full selection of wax, singles, supplies. You can even watch some of those breaks live there in the shop. And if you're interested in submitting to SGC, they are an approved group submitter for SGC as well, and you can learn more about that at udogcollect.com as well. When you check them out, make sure you tell them that WaxPackHero sent you. We are back with another Super Collector feature, and this week we're talking with Kent Corser about his Rickey Henderson Super Collection. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you being willing to come and chat. I love having these conversations with different people about the players and the collections that they're passionate about. And so it's always good to be able to highlight some of the inspiration behind that. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. maybe just give me a little bit of a perspective on what is your background in the hobby?
So, I mean, for me, it really goes back to 1987. That's when I started. It's when I woke up Christmas morning. I was told to stay at the top of the stairs, and I'll never forget when I walked down the bottom of the stairs and turn around and see underneath the tree there's this brown box. And my excitement was kind of like, why is there a brown box? Right? It's not wrapped; it's just loose. And it turns out that ended up being a 1987 Topps complete set. Prior to that, I never collected cards. I played, youth baseball. I always liked baseball, but I was never into cards at that point. So for the first time, it was really eye-opening to me, like, oh, what is this first and foremost? And as I started to go through that set, I started to collate, the cards by team. I did it by color. I did it by different stats, like, all-star players. Of course, I live in Kansas City, so I started with the Royals and started to branch out from there. And as I started to go through that set, I really started to notice how many different Rickey Henderson cards there were. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this guy must be really good, and that's literally what I said to myself. And it was kind of a spark went off. Like, I live in the Midwest. At that time, Rickey was with the Yankees. Yankees weren't on TV all the time, or where I could watch them and stay up late, right? So my exposure to him was very, very little, and I'd already missed the first round of Oakland years. So I had, at that point in my life, I had no idea he even was an A before the Yankees. But from that moment on, and as things started to progress, I got very interested in cards very quickly. And started off with a kind of a small Royals collection. Frank White was my favorite player, actually. And of course everyone around here was George Brett, and then at that time Bo Jackson was coming around, so of course he was everything. But I always kind of was building this fandom, I guess, for Rickey. And it as I learned more about him, he was born on Christmas Day. My birthday is the day after Christmas. I played left field. I led off for my little league team. I couldn't hit worth a darn, but I was pretty darn fast. So if I got on base, I was going to steal. And so all those factors started to come together. I'm like, dude, like I need to pay attention to Rickey Henderson. There's like too many similarities going on here. And it just kind of took off from there. And later on, just a few years later, when he was traded back to the A's, well, then the A's were always on TV for the playoffs, in 89, 90. And so I had a lot more exposure to Rickey then, just not only on TV, but then I also tried to go to every single game that was, played at Royal Stadium at the time. So when I got to see him play, that's when my level of excitement got even more and more and more, because he was just that entertainer to me. And yeah, just fell in love with his swag and the way that he played, and looked to really enjoy the game.
That's really cool. It's amazing how some of those sets, when we're early on in our collecting journey, really kind of help us solidify who we need to be paying attention to. Who are some of those major players? Similar to you, I grew up in Central Illinois, and my first year collecting was a year before, in 1986. And that 86 top set, Pete Rose was one of the featured players, had those first several cards kind of recapping his career. And I was like, wow, if he's got this whole subset that's all dedicated to him, and he's got a regular card, and he's got an all-star card, and he's got all of these other things, Pete Rose must be something really important. Now, I never became a Pete Rose super collector, but it was that set that showed me that he was a legendary player in the game. And it sounds like Rickey kind of had that same role for you in 1987. That's really cool.
Yep.
What did you continue collecting solidly throughout your childhood, or kind of what was the point where maybe that switch flipped, where you went beyond being a fan of Rickey Henderson to deciding you were going to super collect Rickey Henderson?
So I never stopped. To this day, I've said I've really never taken a break in the hobby from collecting Rickey. Obviously, at times of my life growing up as a kid, I didn't have the money to go buy a whole bunch of stuff. So it was more of piecing things together. It was easy living here in Kansas City, with not a lot of Royals, or sorry, not with a lot of Rickey collectors around. that when I walked into a card show or I went to, a card store, I was probably the only kid in that day that was asking for Rickey Henderson cards, right? Because everyone's asking for Brett, Bo, whatever else. And so it was easy for me to make deals. It was easy for me to make trades and or buy Rickey super, super cheap around here. And so I use that towards my advantage. I'm like, look, if everyone else is going to go after Brett and pay whatever prices they were back then, or even Chiefs players and stuff, then I'm going to be that Rickey guy and go in and make deals. And so I was able to acquire basically a collection very, very cheap, even as a kid. And even looking back and buying some early rookie cards, I mean, 10, 12 bucks, and at that time, sure, I was probably like, oh my gosh, that's a lot, but I'm going to do it. But the condition wasn't always the most important to me when I was younger. So as I got more mature into the hobby, I had to go back and get some higher condition cards, but I was also one to at a very early age, know to protect the cards. I still have my original binder today, which I absolutely love. I mean, it has all the original stickers and drawings and things that I did as Rickey, as an 8 and 9-year-old. And when I look at that binder today, it's, kind of falling apart a little bit, but that history is all there. And it brings me right back to that moment. Like I remember putting the stickers in that exact spot on the spine of the binder. And so as the collection started to grow, it was all cards at the beginning. I never got into memorabilia, didn't really know what that was, frankly. There was no access to that here. There was no eBay, it's whatever was at that local card store. And the few shows a year, and I only went to ones here in Kansas City, was my access to the hobby world at that time. And I would say I kind of rode that way until I started to work at a baseball card store myself during high school. And so that led me into a whole different ability to see what else is out there. Not only traveling to different card shows around the country at that point, but also, of course, seeing what everyone was bringing into the card store. And that opened my eyes up to a whole new world of new Rickeys that were out there that, again, I could acquire very, very cheap, work deals in the store. And so just having access like that changed the game. And then it really, really escalated in 98, at least for me. That's when I opened up my eBay account. I think it's actually the very first account, like one of the first ones I ever opened up on the internet was eBay. Go figure. And from there, it just really, really took off because now, of course, as it grew and grew and became a worldwide audience on that platform, that's where now I could start to get stuff from the East and West Coast where everything was really Rickey heavy, obviously up in the New York area and then all over California. And I started to find patterns on when I was buying cards, they were coming from the New Jersey area, New York, or somewhere in California about 90% of the time. So I knew that's obviously where the market was. And that was my way to finally tap into that market while living here in the Midwest. And then it just kind of escalated from there as I got older and of course was able to buy things myself. Then that's when I started to get into a little bit more of other things other than cards, like magazines and posters, which then led to more memorabilia, which led down the autograph path. I never had a Rickey Henderson autograph until 2002 was the first certified card that came out from Donruss. So, I mean, the guy started in 1977 in minor league baseball, and it took until 2002 for a certified autograph Rickey Henderson card to come out. And now, every card of his is signed, right? That's the world we live in today. But that's how it, basically escalated and has grown over the years to what it is now.
What exactly is it now? Give us a feel for the scope of your super collection. How many cards, how many autographs, how many pieces of memorabilia? What's that super collection look like right now?
So, it's one of those things that the numbers are always changing. So I probably give a different number every single time, but I have over 4,500 unique Rickey Henderson items. Most of those are cards, for sure. But of cards that are out there, there's 11,600 Rickey Henderson cards in, the trading card database, which is just insane. And so, 4,000, 4,500 of those looks like I'm just a rookie, right? But yeah, those of course are all the one of ones and all the, all that sort of stuff over the years. But every single base card of his that came out during his playing years was, my initial focus. I had to have everything from 1977 to 2003, base cards in every single product. And as far as I know, I have every single card out there. Then it started to turn into, what inserts do I want to get versus what's out there? And then what parallels do I want to get versus what's out there? So I learned very early on that, when the one of ones came out, that was the game changer to me, to be like, okay, cool. Obviously, there's no way I'm going to have every single card. So let's focus on certain things. So I started to focus on green variations, green parallels, anything that color matched his jersey.
Sure.
So, if it was Blue Jays blue or Padres navy or orange, like that's what I wanted during that time frame. And so that's how the card collection has grown to where it is today. Autographs come basically, for me, my goal was always to get at least one autograph out of every single product that comes out. And so what I mean by that is, if Rickey Henderson had an autograph in Topps 5-star, for example, which debuted in 2013, then I wanted to have a Topps 5-star autograph. It doesn't mean I then need to go get one in 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, because I already got it in 13. And so as Topps and as these other manufacturers kind of ebb and flow between their different product lines, my goal was to get an autograph out of every single product. And there's still a few, I think, that are out there, just because there's new stuff, it seems like, every single day. But that's how I've kind of narrowed my focus on the card side, because otherwise it's completely overwhelming, and you lose your mind. And I think today I'm sitting at around 125 different autograph cards, everything from Leaf, Donruss, Topps. I don't think Rickey ever had an Upper Deck autograph, so not Upper Deck. But yeah, it's a really neat collection from trying to work through those different product lines throughout the years. And then memorabilia has been whatever becomes available that I like, that I can fit within, either on the wall. I'm very much someone that if I'm going to buy something, I want to be able to display it. I don't want it to end up in a closet. I don't want it to end up in a box. So in some ways that really helps me, because it confines me to a very specific spot on a wall. And if it doesn't fit, then I'm not buying it. And so, over the years, I've been able to piece together various items that fit the collection and have a place to be displayed. But I also stay away from really big things like autographed jerseys, for example. I have a whole bunch of jerseys from his different teams, but none of them are game used. None of them are autographed. They're just jerseys that I would wear or showcase, but I don't hang them on the wall because it would take up my entire basement. Sure. 9 different teams, right? So you have to be really smart and pick and choose kind of what you want to display. So that's kind of where that's gone. And then with posters, I've just picked and choose over the years on certain teams that I want to showcase, or a certain event of his career, whether it be, the stolen base record or the runs record, or, a leadoff home run, something that's important to the historic side of Rickey or the teams that he played for, 89 World Championship, 93 World Championship, those sort of things I want to highlight on the wall. So that's what covers, 3 pretty significant size walls within my basement.
And all the listeners out there, they're only hearing the audio. I'm seeing your background behind you, which is full of Rickey memorabilia, paraphernalia, and such. And so I've got a couple questions about that, just from kind of what I'm observing. The first question is, the vast majority of what I can see, we're talking posters, figures, 8x10s, a variety of things. The vast majority of that all shows Rickey on the A's. Does Rickey on the A's, does that signify more to you than Rickey on any of those other teams that you've mentioned? Like you said, I think 8, right? 8 different teams that he played for.
9.
Most of what I see is A's related. Is there anything behind that?
So for me, I will always view personally Rickey as an athletic. which is fascinating since in 87, when I first saw him, he was a Yankee. And again, that really just goes back to my ability to see him play more often seemed to be as an athletic. Plus, he played for them on 4 different stints within his 25-year career. He went into the Hall of Fame as an athletic. I was an immediate fan of every team that he played for at the time that he was on their team, right? So I've been in Angels, Dodgers, Red Sox, you name them all. I was a huge fan of that team when Rickey played for them. To this day, I'm a Kansas City Royals and Kansas City Chiefs fan, right? I have no affiliation with the A's from a fandom standpoint right now, right? But if I know that Rickey's going to be at an A's game and be on TV or have some sort of speech or something, you better believe it. I am there. I want to watch. I'm going to find somewhere to see that game, go back and watch it. So again, my affiliation is Rickey, not so much the team. But over the years, of course, the sheer amount of athletic stuff highly outweighs everything else. And so, of course, the stuff that then I'm going to be able to get and acquire more often than not is athletics related. I almost have to seek out if I want something from his very short stint. I mean, he only played 32 games with the Angels. So there's not like a lot of memorabilia or options there. But at the same time, there's some great images. And I've had like custom work done to have, an Angels painting, for example. So you have to work kind of the custom angle for some of those other things. Toronto-based stuff is phenomenal. And luckily I know some folks who have helped with that collection over the years who live there. Otherwise, I have no access to a lot of the Blue Jays specific stuff during that era. And so it really does I really do think the green and gold, from the jerseys and everything else for the A's are just phenomenal jerseys. They always have been. Even the early year ones are some of the best jerseys, I think, in MLB history. So when you look at that stuff, it definitely resonates with me. And of course, the stolen base record. I mean, my name all over is Rickey 939, and that 939 stands for that stolen base record on May 1st, 91. And so that iconic image of him holding the base over his head is on like 90% of Rickey Henderson things that you see on the internet. And while that is a very significant moment, there's obviously a lot of other amazing moments that he had throughout his career. But that is a big part of why there's also a lot of A stuff, because that's the image that everyone goes back to.
Couple things I want to ask you about because they look unique to me. They're really standing out from what I can see. Tell me about the batting glove that's above your right shoulder up there. The green batting glove, is that a kind of game used glove, or what's the story behind that glove?
That particular one is not, but Mizuno is the maker that Rickey was actually an advisory council member for and had an endorsement with for several years. From the late 80s with the Yankees, and it morphed into his early years with the Athletics, where those lime green, they were called Tech Fire Pros actually, were a synonymous batting glove with Rickey Henderson. There are many people today that resonate Mizuno batting gloves with Rickey. And so it's very iconic. It's literally an iconic piece of Major League Baseball history. I mean, batting gloves weren't a thing for many years. And Rickey was one that made batting gloves super cool. And so that iconic Mizuno green is actually a big part of my influence in my collection. Any card art people out there who I've worked with know that I will ask for things and I literally call the color Mizuno green and they're kind of like, what? And then I send them a picture. They're like, oh, okay. So I don't call it neon green or lime green. It's Mizuno green. That's my mind says that is a very specific color. And to this day, I have, I will collect anything that I don't have Mizuno related. So also up on that wall are Mizuno wristbands that are green. On another wall that I'm looking at, I have, some of the early year Mizuno posters. I have Mizuno cleats from 1982 that our game used and autographed. Probably one of the favorite memorabilia pieces for sure in the collection. So it's funny that you mentioned that, but even as a kid in Little League Baseball, I remember going with my parents to 4 or 5 different sporting goods stores and going in and asking for, these green batting gloves. And they would look at me like, what? We have blue, we have white, red. I'm like, no, green. And And the guy literally had to pull out his Mizuno catalog, and we found them, and he ordered them for us. And that was my first time ever having those gloves, and I wore them every single day. And my team colors were red and gray. And so for me to bust out these green batting gloves, people probably thought I was just absolutely crazy. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because Mizuno is actually a really, really big influence on me and the collection, and Rickey collectors all over.
The next thing I wanted to ask about is the kind of oval cutout to your left that looks like it's a jumbo sized cutout from the 80 Topps rookie card. What's going on with that?
So that is actually one of the most talked about pieces. Every time I show that pictures of the Man Cave of Steel, it is actually a painted skate deck.
Oh,
So there's an artist by the name of Aaron Hill, and Aaron has this amazing capability to make art on skate decks, as well as other mediums, of course. But yeah, the detail on that is absolutely incredible, down to the autograph. I mean, it's literally a sliver of the 1980 card, and if I were to put that right next to that, it is spot on the way he had that done. And he's done a whole bunch of other players too, and they just turn out absolutely incredible. And yeah, when he posted a picture, I think it was of Bo Jackson on Instagram, I immediately, within probably minutes, I had sent him a direct message saying, "Have you ever made a Rickey Henderson?" And he said no, and sure enough, well, it's on the wall now. So yeah, one of my favorite art pieces for sure. And that's the art side of the collection's a big deal to me too. There's only so many pictures on cards and so many autographs and things like that honestly, to this day, I'm kind of numb to it. I mean, the autographs and autograph, the same pictures over and over again get boring, quite frankly. So I've spent a significant amount of time and energy over the last several years working with artists on either custom pieces or buying art pieces that they've made of Rickey, all unique, all different. The whole card art scene, I'm a big advocate for. I love working with these creative artists who are taking nostalgic cards and or creating their own cards, which is even more wild to me, front and back, and making new Rickey Henderson things that I know are going to be unique to me and my collection, using images that have never been used before. And that's the stuff that still gets me excited today, because if I just had to rely on the big guys making the same thing over and over and over again, I think I would get bored, quite frankly. So I'm so glad that this art scene has kind of happened between Project 2020 really taking off and opening up the world to this whole scene of cards and art, and mixing those two together. And I've run with it, pun intended. So
now you mentioned art and card art, and I love that, because my next question was going to revolve around another, it looks like 8x10 over your left shoulder. I'm a huge fan of Fleer Provisions, and last winter I got a chance to interview Terry Smith, the original artist for all the Provisions on the podcast. That looks to be one of the Provisions photos there. Tell me about what's the story behind that Henderson, what appears to be a Provision 8x10.
it is. It's actually an artist proof. Terry Smith signed only a handful of them, and Terry is known for keeping, I believe he signed, I might have these numbers off, but I think I'm pretty accurate. I believe he signs 15 artist proofs, keeps 10 for himself, so 5 become available. And he basically had an exclusive offer with somebody that I ran across with on Instagram who buys these from Terry, and of course resells them. And I'm glad I grabbed it when I did, because it's Beckett authenticated, signed by Rickey and signed by Terry.
Wow.
And it's the full image of the what Terry created versus the card, where of course it has to be cropped.
Yeah.
So it's very, very vibrant. Rickey's autograph is as pristine as you can get, and having Terry sign it too is just absolutely amazing. So the fact that he created those, now years ago, and how synonymous that set is with, people who grew up in that era, or even if you look at those cards today, you're like, that's some of the coolest art I've ever seen. it is truly like transcendent and timeless. So yeah, amazing. I love that piece.
It was for sure going to stand out to me because of how much I love Provision. The chance that I had to talk to Terry directly and interview him for the podcast, now bring you on and connect that too. I love how all of those things come together. That's really cool. We'll have to make sure that people can get a chance to see an image of that, because yeah, that's not something that you get to see every day. I love that a lot. Is there anything in this collection, like, these are great stories. I love to hear the passion behind them and the stories behind them. Is there anything that you're still trying to track down, things that you've not been able to get yet, but are kind of top of the list of things you'd love to add to your Henderson collection?
Good question. I mean, there's always things out there. Oh my gosh. For me, the hardest things to find have been regional items.
Sure.
Because again, based in the Midwest, it's hard to get the regional items that maybe were only released in Oakland or San Diego or New York. And now years ago, so even if you do find them, maybe they're not in the best shape. But some of those are like California Highway Patrol cards. I didn't even know that was a thing until about 3 or 4 years ago. And, they came out in, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. And I actually just recently acquired the A's one, within the last 6 months, and was super, super excited to find that. And of course, some guy had like 3 or 4 of them, lives in California, and it's like, for him, he's probably like, oh yeah, they just handed these out, like no big deal. Well, for somebody like me, it was like the holy grail. I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally found one, and it's like pristine condition. And along those lines, though, there's I believe it's either the 96 or 97 California Highway Patrol's Padre set. There's a Rickey in that. And I've never been able to acquire one. I've never seen one for sale. And so it's things like that I might not even know that stuff's out there, still yet, which is just fascinating to me. And, I'm part of a 1,000+ user Rickey Henderson collector group on Facebook. And every single day people are posting things where we might not have ever seen it before. And we're some of the biggest Henderson collectors out there. And that's just amazing to me that, for as mature as some of our collections are, we are still posting things to each other for all of us to just enjoy as Rickey Henderson fans that some of us have never seen before, but we've had access to because of where we live or just opportunities. And so there are many things like that, regional based things that I would love to be able to get. There are some rainbows that I'm 1 or 2 cards short of that, I'd love to be able to complete. But if I don't, I'm at the point where I'm just at peace, right? I mean, if I stopped collecting today, I would totally be at peace with where I'm at. But I have no intention of stopping. So, and it is kind of weird, as you look at the number of Rickey Henderson items that have come out, it like grows year over year. I mean, since he's retired, there's more cards now than ever before during his entire playing year combined. He played for 25 years. And so it just compounds year after year after year. But that's kind of where I talked about earlier, that narrow focus of, let me get the base card, let me get 1 or 2 parallels, and I'm going to call it a day. And I'm at peace with that. I don't need the 1 of 1s. I don't need, the out of 5s. Those things are super awesome. And if I'm able to get them and they, come my way and I'm able to work it out, cool. But I'm not seeking it out, for example. So yeah, that, and again, I'm just absolutely loving working with various artists, because there seems to be new ones every single day that I come across that have unique skills that I'm like, that's something that's unique that I don't have in the collection. Like, I never knew I needed a 1980 rookie card made out of leather, but there's an amazing artist who makes cards out of leather and paints them, and I fell in love because I'm like, oh, I gotta have a leather card. Why not? So those are the things that I'm constantly looking for that are unique and fun.
Well, if somebody wants to follow along with your journey, or maybe they've got a unique Henderson item that you don't have, where can people get in touch with you? Where can they follow along with what you've got going on?
So I'm on social media, so one of my things that I do every single day is I post a new item of the collection, every single morning, one item. And I've been doing this for the last 2.5 years now. And so I have about 12 years worth of content. So there's a lot more time left. But you can find me on Twitter and at Instagram. I'm at Rickey939. And feel free to, follow along if you're interested in any of these items. Some of the things we talked about today, of course, I have pictures on if you go through the media feed. And I'm always available to direct message if there's somebody that wants to show me something, or just talk Rickey. I'm always willing and loving to talk about anything Rickey Henderson, hobby related, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you spending a few minutes tonight chatting, and I think people are really going to enjoy this. The passion that you've got for Henderson has really come through, and there's some pretty cool stories about some of these unique pieces that you've got. So thanks again, Kent, for coming on tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Like the athletes we admire, the Sports Card Shop is changing the game. We're not launching threes, bombing drives, or hitting dingers, but we have built a unique gathering spot for all collectors to trade cards, talk sports, play games, and watch their favorite athletes on the big screens. Yes, we've partnered with Panini, Upper Deck, Leaf, Topps, Fanatics, Pokemon, and others to bring you all the latest in sealed wax and singles. But the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan is much, much more. Our recent expansion brings collectible sneakers, Hot Wheels, and more sports and entertainment memorabilia into the mix. Our new Collector's Cave game room is the perfect place to throw a rip party, bring friends, rip packs, trade cards, play billiards, ping pong, shuffleboard, classic arcade, and Xbox games, all while watching your favorite sport on TV. Visit us at thesportscardshop.com. Follow us on social @_sportscardshop, or better yet, visit us in person to learn about special events, party packages, new products, and everything we're doing for you. The Sports Card Shop, connecting people, sports, and the hobby around the world.
Thanks again to Kent for joining me to talk about his Henderson Super Collection. If you've got a super collection of your own that you'd like to come on and talk with me about, reach out to me on Twitter at @TheMikeSummer. Send me an email at WaxPackHero@gmail.com. You can also get a hold of me on TikTok and Instagram at WaxPackHero. And I would love to hear about what that is, and we can talk about you joining me and having a conversation for the show, where everybody else can get a chance to experience your passion and what you've been putting together. Well, that is all I have for you today, so I'll catch you next time.